fucking god! Hello everyone. What a crazy weekend, eh? Bohemia and Team Savage decided to drop some napalm right in our rice paddies for an opening weekend of pure confusing, frantic, chaotic fun. And by that I mean I've never been so confused but had so much fun at the same time before. You'll understand what I mean when you load into Mike Force for the very first time without actually reading up on it first, just like I did. So what the hell am I actually talking about? I'm of course talking about the release of the newest creator DLC, SOG Prairie Fire. Developed by Team Savage and published by Bohemia Interactive. If you're new to ArmA or this particular creator DLC, you can find a basic preview and description of Prairie Fire in the video appearing in the top right of your screen, round about now. Or alternatively in the description box down below. I'm going to be reviewing Prairie Fire in two parts. This video, part 1, will serve as a review of the core additions, assets and the gameplay in general. Part 2 will delve a little bit deeper into the multiplayer experience and the new modules provided, and anything else I haven't really covered in this part. Right, let's crack on. So first up is the terrain, and it's all well and good having fantastic assets, but we need a platform to use these said assets and a stage to immerse ourselves into the Vietnam experience. And on this particular front, Prairie Fire does not disappoint. In fact, it's probably one of the best terrains I've ever played on. And I've only explored a tiny bit, basically the equivalent of a sand speck on an elephant's arse. Now before I go any further, I wanted to address one of the community concerns regarding this terrain. When Prairie Fire was announced, we were given a generous amount of screenshots, and some of the eagle-eyed amongst you spotted a few reused assets from Altis, Tanoa and Livonia. While this is certainly true, there are many new custom assets as well. Some of the existing assets do fit very nicely as is. Some have been retextured, and some have actually been furnished with objects. Now this is a small detail, but believe me guys, simple stuff like this breathes a lot of new life back into these older assets, and gives it a kind of lived-in feel, which has been really sorely lacking within ArmA. Talking of furnishings and signs of life, take these markets for example. For a mission maker this is brilliant, just stick a few civvies down with some random waypoints or animations, a tiny bit of sound, and you have a fully fleshed living market scene. These cars in particular on the streets are also a very nice touch. Whilst not drivable, they are interactive. You can, for example, open side doors to enable a bit of extra cover. Small but appreciated details like this bring the experience to life. The terrain as a whole does a fantastic job of encompassing most aspects or criteria of what people expect to be in a Vietnam experience. The terrain, Cam Lao, is about 300 square kilometres. Although not to scale, it does feature cities such as Saigon, Hue and its citadel, air bases and FOBs, rice paddies, well, lots of rice paddies, jungle of various bushiness, hilly villages, cliffs, mountains, swamps, rivers, hidden camps, tunnels, and much, much more. As I said, I've only explored a tiny fraction of what this terrain has to offer. Up next we have the assets themselves. The weapons and vehicles here are top-notch guys, and just like global mobilization, you can tell these are definitely creator DLC worthy, and in my opinion are a grade above workshop offerings. Whilst assets offered by Vietnam theme mods such as Unsung do contain decent quality models, could you say that about all the models within the mod? Inevitably, people will compare it against mods. In fact, please do so. There's more than likely going to be comparison videos out there soon. I know a few in the community like to do weapons showcases and vehicle showcases and things like that. So if this is a particular sticking point for you, you could just wait for these types of videos and you can see the difference yourself. For the weapons themselves, you'll find all the iconic stuff here, such as M16s, M60s, grenade launchers, SKSs, PPSHs, grease guns, you know, all the stuff you'd expect. Workshop comparisons to one side, there is what you could call a kind of gripe. Whilst the factions are pretty fleshed out infantry wise, we are missing stuff like APCs or armoured trucks, and there is only a handful of jeeps and cars and trucks as it is. I don't know whether this is by design or a practical decision in the sense of the terrain itself, because it really doesn't warrant armoured engagements really, it's, you know, because of the type of terrain. Or it could be that historically they were not used in this particular AO. As a Brit, my knowledge of the conflict is sorely lacking, so please do feel free to politely correct me in the comments below. But from what little I do know, the conflict relied heavily on infantry with its mobility produced by the effective use of helicopters and supported by overwhelming firepower from artillery, gunships and fixed-wing aircraft. On the subject of conflict and the iconic Vietnam experience, we need to talk about the atmosphere. And firstly, the soundscape is immense. I think sound in general is so underrated in games and other media. On missions, a lot of the time you'll hear enemies before you actually see them. You could be following a small trail through the jungle and you'll hear the Viet Cong talking amongst themselves or barking orders and insults at each other. Forcing your group to stop dead in the tracks and either take a knee or hit the dirt. The jungle itself actually sounds amazing. I thought Tanoa from the Apex expansion had good jungle sounds, but this is on par, if not, you know, surpasses it in some areas. Take a listen. Another neat touch is the screams of the wounded and the final death screams and shouts from downed combatants. It's really cool, like spraying the jungle, then just hearing people go ah! It's really immersive. You know, to be fair, it's really good.
Quite a lot. Shit.
Yeah, close, danger close.
Why am I not firing?
Oh, I hear him screaming as you shoot him. That's cool.
I'm not.
Weapon sounds here are excellent. However, there is a couple of weapons that did sound a bit lackluster, but for the most part they are very punchy and impactful. Sound is very subjective, so I stress this is an opinion and not a fact. The soundtrack contains 14 rock and blues tracks. It also includes 16 cinematic and authentic Vietnamese tracks that capture the beauty of the landscape. It's very, very nicely done and fits the theme beautifully. It is actually available to purchase separately on Steam, and a portion of the proceeds actually go to a Special Forces veteran charity. So, over to the gameplay in general. And just like Global Mobilization, this particular DLC forces you to play ArmA very differently. In absence of any body armour and scopes, your movement will be slower and a lot more deliberate. Not only that, you're having to watch out for traps, hidden foxholes and tree platforms. You're also going to be relentlessly pursued by enemy trackers. I've been working all weekend, so haven't had time that I would have liked to get my teeth fully sunken into the meaty DLC and its co-op campaign. But from what I have played so far, you will actually be playing a little mini-game of sorts as you tackle the objectives. And what do I mean by this? Well, as you try and complete your objectives, you have to bear in mind you are actually in hostile territory, you're vastly outnumbered, and one small engagement can send a whole world of hurt towards your unit. With that in mind, you'll be constantly checking your 6, planting toe popper and trip mines. These will act either as an early warning system for a possible rear contact, or it could be used as a shield if you're facing overwhelming numbers to your front. Team Savage have also done a great job on forcing some aggressive play out of ArmA's AI. They will literally hurl themselves at your position. It creates epic movie-like moments. Oh my fucking god!
Fuck yeah, man.
You will learn to love grenades and the various machine guns on offer, especially if you're only equipped with the 18-round M16 mags, because you'll quickly run out of ammo and get caught in reloads. And if you haven't got time to reload, Team Savage have also implemented a basic but usable melee system. Not personally used it yet, but have seen it done when an AI went for a reload. A player ignoring its own reload went in for the kill and succeeded. It was pretty good. Whilst we're talking about the AI, I must admit it actually surpassed my expectations. Not in the sense of skill, but in the fairness of engagements. If you take ArmA's vanilla AI and stick them in, say, Tanoa for instance, you know how laser accurate they can be. They can spot you through almost any vegetation, but I don't know what they've done here, but the skill settings, I don't know, it just feels different, yeah. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's like you have a chance to react to contact now and experience a deadly firefight instead of just taking the first bullet and then watching through the, the "you are dead" spectator screen. I have heaped praise upon this Creator DLC so far, and rightly so, but there are some sticking points. Obviously I mentioned the vehicle variety issue in the asset section. Also, you have to bear in mind that this is an optional Creator DLC, and it's not a platform update from an official DLC. This means that any of the new features or core mechanics won't be available for the base game. Also, the new terrain assets that are included are not available to use unless you download the compatibility patch. But also, you've got to bear in mind that you won't be able to use the terrain itself, just its assets. And the weapons and vehicles will be for show only and not actually usable for the player. Right, well that about wraps it up for part 1. Subscribe to the channel to get notified for part 2, where we'll be taking a deeper dive into the co-op campaign and the new popular game mode Mike Force. Until then, try not to drop napalm on yourselves. Catch you later guys. Bye! About fucking 10 aircraft in the sky over Kuchi.